Hey Mini enthusiasts, how are you doing? So we're back once again. It's part 9 of the classic mini race car build, Project Bolt. And so in this week's update we take the car on a track day, or prefer to call it a shakedown actually. It was the first time the car's ever been out, ever been driven on a road. So really we booked it in for a track day, booked a little garage down at Brands Hatch so we can work on it while we were there. But it was all about getting the car shakedown, making sure everything was working right, and then trying to start kind of getting it dialed in. So the first part of the video is Mark just giving the car the final touches. So it was all kind of lastminute.com. Mark booked the track day actually for the middle to end of March. I think, I've got a feeling it was the 21st or 22nd of March, midweek, which when he booked it I thought was very, very ambitious. I thought there was no way we'd ever make that, considering sort of 5-6 months previous we were sitting there looking at a shell with some great big rusty holes in it. But yeah, Mark booked the track day nice and early. As with all these things, it really come down to the wire. We had a few electrical gremlins towards the end, which we managed to sort out just in time. And unfortunately what we didn't get complete ready for the track day was Mark had ordered carbon fibre wheel arches for the car. So I'd ordered carbon bumpers, they'd turned up, but the wheel arches, to be fair, Mark ordered them about 3 months ago, so they took a very, very long time to come through. They were delayed in the end. The carbon fibre company blamed it on the cold weather and the snow. I don't know whether there's much truth in that or not, but I think Mark used all 3 of the big sort of mini carbon fibre companies actually. One for the roof, one for the dashboard, and one for the bumpers and wheel arches. So unfortunately we went on the track day. Brands Hatch were quite happy with it to have the open wheels. Wasn't quite sure, but they were fine with it actually. So we took it on the track day without wheel arches, which wouldn't ordinarily be a problem, but when you see the weather in the videos, the weather was horrendous for this track day. It couldn't have been worse actually. It rained pretty much non-stop all day long. At one point it was sleeting as well, so it was very cold. It was very, very wet, but thankfully we were there all day from sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and towards sort of 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon it did start to dry out a little bit, so we did manage to get in a couple of reasonable laps. Now obviously, being its first run out on the track, the objective of the day really was just to get it running right, get everything working properly, and make sure we finished the track day with the car in one piece, which was no mean feat considering the weather. I think there were probably somewhere around 25 to 30 cars booked on the track day that day, ranging from Caterhams, Lotuses, Ferraris, you name it, it was there, Porsches, and probably out about those 30 cars, 10 to 15 spun off or went in the gravel trap, and actually 3 of them had quite bad accidents there. Drivers are okay, but when I say quite bad, I mean they weren't driving the car back home, it was going home on the back of a trailer. So we did manage to get through the whole track day. I was very, very conscious that, you know, Bolt, I've had a hand in building the car, it's not my car. I did not want to go spinning it off or putting it into a gravel trap or causing damage to it. So we were both pretty cautious with the car, and I'm pleased to say we really didn't have any problems. We had the typical mini thing with damp getting into the distributor at the front of the car. Bit of an amateur mistake there really, we should have covered that over, but I don't think we were expecting the weather to be so horrendous. And for the first few sighting laps it was quite funny actually. I'll try and put a photo in a moment, but when we started off putting the car back together, I said to Mark, let's have like a whiteboard or something, and we can put some notes on the whiteboard of things we need to tighten up, things we mustn't forget when we get to the end. In the end we used one of the cupboards and just wrote on it with like a whiteboard marker. Right at the very end of the build actually, we went around the whole car, made sure everything was tight. We went out on the sighting laps. I drove the first few laps on the car, which was very, very nervous, and just the steering felt really odd. It was really loose around the middle, and I said to Mark as we were going around, I said, kind of feels like the steering rack's loose, and that was the very first thing we put up on the board to tighten up, which we'd completely and utterly forgotten. So It wasn't loose, but it was loose enough so the rack was sliding backwards and forwards as we were trying to turn. So luckily knew what that was straight away. Didn't take long to sort out, but I'm glad we found it out there instead of at full pace around the track. And then just finally, before we get into the photos and videos, how the car performed. So it went really well actually. Like I say, it was really wet, so we couldn't push it that hard. We had to be careful. It was a new setup. We set it up fairly neutral, so the tracking on the front, I think we set up parallel, the rear was set up parallel, put a degree of camber on the front, half a degree on the back. The high-lows and suspension was set on the very lowest setting we could get it on, and we even used the older knuckle joints on the front, which don't have the spacer in them, so it gets a little bit lower as well. But as you'll see in the photos, actually the front end of the car was still very high. The only other big adjustment we had to make was the rear brake bias. So the rear brakes were working too well, so we backed the bias bar all the way off, so there was barely any braking on the back. Still wasn't enough, and we had to de-adjust the brakes a little bit on the back, because the last thing you want is the back brakes locking up as you're coming into a corner. But after making those adjustments, it went pretty well. I think Mark, it was wet, drying off towards the end, run a 118, which is the quickest we've done that day. But trust me, the car goes a lot faster than that, and next week or in a couple of weeks time, I'll update you on the track day that we done a couple of days ago, where the guest driver, it was in the dry and the car is phenomenally quick. Really impressed by what the car is capable of. And just lastly, I'll stop waffling on, I promise. As you can see in the photos in a minute, Mark put all the decals on the car at the end. I had nothing to do with that, but I tell you what, I felt an immense sense of pride when I saw that car for the first time with all the decals on it. One, it looked absolutely fantastic, and as you'll see in the pictures, Mark put the driver names in the window and put my name there as well, so I felt really proud of that. You know, at the end of the day, it's not my car. Mark funded it, Mark put the money towards it, and I just helped Mark assemble all the bits and put them all together, done some welding for him and gave him some advice. But you know, thanks Mark, you know, it means a lot. See my name in the window really made me feel proud, and feel, you know, like I say, I don't own the car, but I almost feel like I do. I've put a lot of hard work into it, and I think it will really pay dividends. It is a really great car. It's got some really great potential, and you'll see that in the next few videos. So, thanks for watching, guys.